Welcome everybody. I'm very pleased that Jascha and Johannes have made this day possible. I've been working on bed boxes for quite some years now, and one of the things that struck me most was that there's almost no information exchange about experiences and about bed boxes and ideas of designs of bed boxes. I could tell all day about bed boxes, but what I think is one of the most interesting things is how these bed boxes came to be, because it tells you a lot about where they were made for and how to interpret the results of the bed boxes. Because nowadays we use them a lot for roost replacement, but a lot of bed boxes were never made for that. I'm a volunteer bed worker for quite some years now at the bed work group of North Brabant, and I am very interested in bed houses, and I've used them for bed survey, for monitoring, for mitigation and compensation, and I find them very inspiring. And I must admit that I'm very glad that since we are using bed boxes in our bed work group, we have also gained a lot of new members, because walking around with a bed detector at night is fun, but not for everybody. And doing bed work during the day is something quite different, and it's also very nice. I'm a professional bed researcher since also a few years, 2006, and nowadays I work at Bureau Waardenburg, who gave me the time to prepare all of this stuff. Why this presentation? Why do I want to tell you something about it? Well, bed houses are more and more used as a replacement roost, and understanding how they were developed and used is important to understand their rate of success. Now, what I'm going to tell about is what's a bed house. It's very simple, but what's a bed house? Something about European bed research, something about the prefab built-in bed houses that are nowadays on the market, that are quite popular. The American way, about tweaking bed houses to get them absolutely successful. About recent developments in Europe, and how to improve bed house success. What I'm not going to tell about is hibernation routes, and you also will hear very little about hibernation bed boxes, because that's something quite different, and also something that is they are made, but they are not really successful, and I have to make some decisions on what I'm going to tell about them. So it's mainly about making bed houses successful for maternity roosts. Well, defining a bed house is a bed house is a man-made feature mounted on or included in an object with the aim to provide a roost for beds. So I'm not going to tell anything about bed towers or some stuff like that. Of course, bed boxes are used in bed towers and other bigger objects, but I want to keep it to things that you can mount somewhere, or that is not really that big, although some bed houses are so big that you can mount them anymore with only a ladder. I differentiate different bed house types: cavity bed houses, crevice bed houses, pre-filled built-in bed houses, multi-chambered bed houses that will be in this presentation, also known as nursery houses, and customized built-in bed roost, which is you can buy them anywhere, but you have to design them your own and find somebody to build them, or you build them yourself. Well, in Europe it started a long time ago with people putting up bird boxes. Bird boxes are from 1800 somewhere, and they also found beds in bird boxes, especially in the autumn when the birds are away. You find Natutius pipistrelles a lot in bed boxes in the Netherlands and in Western Europe, and there's a lot of competition, and so it's very strange to find a marsh tit and a noctule in the same nest box, cozy together. The marsh tit is very lucky that it isn't a greater noctule, because it would have been eaten. But there were some guys, and especially there was one guy around 1860. I can't remember his name, but he thought, well, if you can make a bird box, then you can make a bed box, a bed house. And mainly, a lot of European designed bed houses, the cavity boxes, are something like this. You have a box with a hole at the bottom. That's the difference. And the idea emerged around 1860. Now, well, a lot of developments came around, just after the war, 1950, 1960. And we have now two types of bed boxes, bed houses in the Netherlands. A lot of are made from woodcrete, that is houtbeton for the mensen, for the Nederlanders, woodcrete. And there are some designs, and they are not really that big. They are like this high and this diameter. And most of the adaptations that are made in time have to do with the need to repel birds. Because if you don't adapt it rightly, then you will have a lot of birds in your bed box, but no beds. There's also made of wood, and these are all a lot of bed boxes that people designed or built by their own. But I understand that in the UK you also can buy a lot of wooden bed boxes at different shops. In Europe it's a lot of woodcrete bed boxes and some wooden, but these are also cavity bed houses. And somewhat later, there were also the crevice bed houses especially made for beds that like to live in a small area, in a small space, a crevice. Also, they're usually like this big and this wide, and the crevice is sometimes less than 2 centimeters, often more than 3 centimeters, and with 5 centimeters, it's somewhere in between a crevice bed house and a cavity bed house. Now, where were they used for? Well, to start with what is at the bottom of my sheet, everybody who used them and has written about them since then, and it's still now in a lot of European books about bed houses in forests especially, they say bed houses can contribute to the maintenance of an adequate supply of available roots for forest bed, but they cannot replace a tree roost. So that's where they're not used for. They were used for bed surveys, making beds visible. When we didn't have the bed detectors yet, it was very hard to find beds. For bed research and monitoring, especially bed banding and population monitoring. And in Germany, it's amazing when you go on vacation there and you go to a big forest and you know what bed houses look like. You see bed houses. And I've asked several people, how many bed houses are there in Germany? And they say, well, 100,000 is maybe a little bit too much, but it's several 10,000s of bed houses mounted there and still monitored.
I think you can add a 0 to it.
Yes.
Even more.
Even more, yeah. So we had these two types that were developed, the cavity and the crevice roots, and they were quite small. And the most important improvements were for repelling birds, making the bed houses more durable, for research purposes, and better suitability for hibernation. There are a few hibernation bed houses. Results are not that good. And there was little application of bed houses in urban areas. So the results are mainly that they are used, the crevice bed houses are used by individual beds and mating groups, mainly common pipistrelles and lenticeous pipistrelles, and individual beds, mating groups, large male groups, and sometimes small maternity groups of noctules. It's also very common to find them in bed houses. But bigger maternity roosts can be found of brown long-eared bed, Bastein's bed, and Netherer's bed. Depends on the area where you are. But from the other species, there are sometimes individuals or small groups, but there are almost non-maternity groups. This is a summary. Of course, there are exceptions, but this is an overall. These are the results. And it took often more than 1 or 2 years before a bed house was used for the first time. In the 90s, there was something new in Europe, and I don't know exactly know how, of why they were developed. I think it has to do with also that we are very interested to do these kind of things for swifts and other house breeding birds. But there came these pre-filled built-in bed houses for integration in or behind brickwork. They are made from different materials. You can buy them separate, or you can buy units that can be linked to make a bigger roost. But the size is quite small. If you compare them to the standard bed houses used in forests, they are quite the same. They're a little bit bigger, but are still quite small, in my opinion. And they are suitable for, I guess, maybe some people have know the quiz QI on BBC. This is the time to say to get nobody knows. Suitable for nobody knows. Why? There's very little known about bed house uptake by beds. And it's a very strange situation, because they are used a lot for for roost replacement and to make beds, to give beds a place in new buildings. But there's a nice book, which I think is very good, but it says very clearly about the product uptake of these bed houses, unknown. And it goes so far that BCT has put on their website recently that they are in no way recommending these products, and they have yet to be reported as being successful. And that's a strange situation. I agree. I think it's a good book, but we have now the situation that there's a lot of demand for these kind of bed houses, but actually we are not knowing what we are doing exactly. I have some experience, and I hope there are more people who have a positive experience with these bed houses and will tell about it. But as for a project for the Mammal Society, we monitored some of these houses, and in 2010 we found pipistrelles in one of these bed boxes, bed houses, and they are still being used as for individual beds and small maternity groups, small mating groups, no nursery colonies yet. At the other side of the ocean, there were things were going quite differently. There was in 1918 until 1992, the Bed Conservation International promoted bed houses, especially the European ones, because we had so good results. They used them, and in 1992 they did a survey of the results, and they found out there was very little success with our bed houses over there. There was some success with other designs and ideas, and especially bigger bed houses work better, smaller crevices work better, and mounting them on buildings and poles worked better than mounting them on trees. They had a great project, the North American Bed House Research Project, and there must be a European Bed House Research project soon, I think. And they did an annual survey of occupancy success. It's a different, related to design, location, and habitat of where the bed house is. And they were encouraging bed workers, of bed lovers, to design their own bed house, to provide multiple bed houses with different properties, so you can compare the results. And they also said, when you have a bed house mounted somewhere, and there's no beds in it after 1 or 2 years, change something to it. Put it in another place, give a different color, and then report how it's going. And very important, they had a newsletter in which they shared results and insights with other people. And they were tweaking with a lot of things. They were tweaking with color, different colors, with design, with where you put the bed house on a wall, on a tree, on a pole. Size, in America everything is much bigger, so also the bed houses got really big. And I like this picture a lot. This is from Terry Lobdell, who has, I think there's no wall or no place on his house that it doesn't have bed houses on it, even on the chimney has bed houses. And different sun exposure. And what they found, and they also, in time, they developed a basic bed house that was, had the basics to be successful. And it's quite big. It's like something like this. This can be, I think it should be bigger, but this is, how do you call it? Feasible. It has multiple chambers. There's some climate control by vents in the front and in the side of the bed house. The bottom is open, so bed droppings can fall out. You don't have to clean them every year. And they had also plastic mesh used for grips, but wooden panels, I think, is just as good. They had different results than we have, but remind when you read that they have only good results with 3 species. For the other species, it is a different story, but 3 species were doing very good. It was the little brown bat. They have many maternity groups of more than 100 bats in the bat houses. Big brown bats, also many maternity groups, not so big, but they have maternity groups. And Mexican free-tailed bat, which are more in the south of the US, they had even bat houses with several thousands of bats, really big bat houses. And these bat houses were often used within the first year, often within half a year. In the latest results, they have 50% first occupancy, occupation. No, that's it. Yes, within 6 months. They found some criteria for success, which was mainly some in design and size. These very small crevices, multiple roost chambers, large. The wood treatment, and they found out that if you, depending where you live, you have to give your bat house a certain color to get the right temperature inside the bat house. If you live like in the Netherlands, we have our high temperatures in summer somewhere, I think, here. I think that most bat houses in the Netherlands should be black. And when you buy a bat house, it's often not black, or a few years ago, they were normally, untreated. It was wood color, which is too light. The sun exposure has to be quite high. And that's very difficult for people who don't work with bats to understand it, because when you buy a birdhouse, you put it in the shade, because otherwise the eggs get boiled. People are quite afraid to mount bat houses in such a, to make them black, to mount them in the sun, because maybe the bats get too hot. Well, bats like it quite hot. They found out that for maternity colonies in summer, internal bat house temperatures should stay somewhere between 27 and 38 degrees. That's what bats like. And so they found a lot of things about the microclimate of bat houses. It's important that a bat house has a certain heating capacity, that it can warm up by the sun, that it can store that heat, that must be heat without the H. The heat is something completely different. That it has different temperature ranges, and that you have to make sure that it's exposed to a heat source. And you can do that by the things on the right, the color, the size, and use of materials, multiple chambers, sun exposure, multiple bat houses at different bat houses, different places, is also different temperature ranges, and with ventilation. Because when you only put up one bat house, and there are no other roosts in the area, and the bats like the bat house because it gets too hot, then you get these situations, which you see that the bats are getting very hot. They go to the bottom of the bat house. But this is not good, because they are very vulnerable to predators. Those bat houses were used for bat research, to find out roost requirements, and for bat exclusion. And for us in Europe, in the Netherlands, I don't know how it's in other countries, but to exclude bats from a bat house is not often done, because with brick houses, you have big nuisance problems with bats. But in America, where most of the houses are made from wood, then bat can very quickly become a problem. So bat excluding is there more done, and they had a high success rate in exclusion projects, especially when the bat houses were mounted upon the building where the bats had to go away. They also had a lot of ideas about bat houses for pest control, but there are no results available yet about it, but I think it's a great idea. So I think there's also somebody going to tell about that in Europe. then in Europe we get a situation that we have, since the 90s, we have legal protection of beds. Suddenly everything became a little bit different when you wanted to demolish or renovate a house with beds in it, because it's prohibited to destroy, damage and disturb bed roosts. Well, but if you do the right thing, then you get a license, and if you take the right mitigation and compensation measures, and it all goes down to root creation, root restoration and root enhancement. And then the question rose for me, can you apply bed houses as a roof replacement? Well, European bed houses are, if you look at the results, they are often only used by individual beds and mating roots, not a lot of maternity roosts, and the storage capacity for heat and for different temperature ranges is very small. So I don't think they are really usable for replacement roosts for maternity colonies. For individual beds, yes, but not for big colonies. The same with pre-filled built-in bed houses, but there I must say it looks promising, because when it's put in a wall you have much more heat storage, but results are unknown. They are still, I think, too small. They have no temperature ranges, and also you can buy them as linked units, but they're also linked horizontally. And horizontally you don't get different, you don't get a lot of diversity in microclimates. Then you have to link them vertically, because then you get heat building in top and cold areas in the bottom. And they are suitable for some roofs, but not for other roofs. Then maybe American-style nursery houses are a solution. And there's a growing interest in. It's really, it's a hype, I think. Also, I would like to call it a hype, because it's boosted by this legal conservation, and we have some early successes with large maternity groups that also were published. And Susan Swift was very successful with getting, I think it was long in bed, brown long in bed and pipistrelle bed, that she managed to move. We did a few days that the beds moved out voluntary from the house where they were in to a heated bed house. Then there's the Korsten bed house, the nursery bed house in Tilburg, and there will be more presented at this meeting. Well, the Korsten bed house was a renovation project. There was a bed roost in the cavity of this in the wall cavity of this building, and the entrance was a crack in the wall, and the building had to be renovated. So, what are we going to do about it? And my idea, and we counted 84 common pipistrelles and 104 common pipistrelles in 2001 and 2002, and I suggested to the owner of the building, because they had some time still for the renovation, let's build a big bed house and see if we can manage to let the beds move voluntary. So we built this bed house based on American design, but I made it much bigger. I made it 1 meter high, 180 centimeters wide. It was very heavy. It had to be lifted with a crane. And it has something that now also you can see more and more in bed houses. It is mounted in that way upon the wall that there's a chamber between the bed house and the wall. So the wall is a part of the bed house. So they can, the beds go in at the entrance, there, and they can climb up, and they also can hang on the wall, which has a different heat capacity than the wooden part of the bed houses. And it was mounted within 50 centimeters of the original entrance. Well, the results were very promising. The next year, in 2004, the bed house was installed. We had, in the autumn of 2004, we had 2 beds in it, which I was very happy about it, because within half a year it was discovered. And then next year I was over the moon, as you say, because I had 84 beds emerging from the bed house. But I must say I have done some, how you call it, I've been dancing in the evening when at the immersion counts were, because over 200 was a great thing, but now this year we got over 300 beds, and it is still going up. It's amazing. And we have proof on pictures that it's a maternity colony, because on the bottom you can see a pup drinking at its mother.
The old entrance was still available?
Yes, only in just before the renovation, we closed it with an exclusion flap to make sure that beds would not go in. But that's not there anymore, and a little bit, because they ripped it off. There's still some exclusion flap, but it doesn't close the entrance anymore. And the beds are still in the building now after renovation in winter time. In March, when in March I counted 178 beds from the bed house, but also about 20 that were coming from the building, which is a sign that are in the building still in the winter. But in summer they choose the bed house over the building. And since that, there was I've published about it, and I said, well, it's very interesting for as a mitigation measure, but we are not there yet. We have to do more research. But the problem of renovating or demolishing buildings with a pipistrelle colony in it, which is quite common in the Netherlands, this was for many people the problem, and I don't blame them. I've used it myself also. You have to do something. So a lot of maternity bed houses were built, most times for pipistrelles, sometimes also for seroutines, which I think is quite different because they are rarely found in bed houses. And how many nursery bed houses are there in the Netherlands? Well, I've asked people from the government who give these permits, and when I say that it estimated somewhere between 100 and 200 of these kind of bed houses. They are getting smaller and smaller every year, I must admit. I see them going smaller, but they are still quite big. And how many with maternity groups? Well, there's almost no monitoring done. So no one knows. I know about 5 to 10 with large groups, and I hope there are more, but I don't know. And even now, bed house suppliers, the shops, start selling them. Vivara, which is also here, they have a nursery house, bed house, which is this one. This is very similar to the USA design. Schwekler has a new bed house made from wood concrete, which is also based on American design. And Strobel has for some years now this one. This is meant for 3 roosts, but it still has the same idea of bigger bed house with more chambers. But I think that for real big colonies, these are still quite small. Can they? We don't have a lot of results, but could they work in Europe? Yes, I think so. Because when you look at the nursery houses in the USA and what they found about these conditions in maternity colonies, when you look at the temperatures that are measured in roosts in buildings and trees for European species, those favorable roost temperatures are not really that different. And we are somewhere in the same climate zone, and it's all insect-eating beds. They all have to deal with energy. They have to make sure they do not waste a lot of energy. So these roost temperatures, I think they can be quite the same here as over there. So they might be suitable for mitigation and compensation. And there are some positive results from other countries. Also, for soprano pipistrelle, there's a lot of positive results. For nutritious pipistrelles, there are some good results. For northern bed, there are some good results. And there are also some results, and I don't exactly know how much, so that's why I put it in a different place, with particolored bed, with whiskered bed, and with common pipistrelle. But when you look at the beds which have very good results, discovered is not the right word. There's something about them, because I think they are also beds that are a lot found in that can be found in trees and in wooden buildings, where some of these beds, which have not so good results yet, are often also found in brick buildings. So they may have a different heat, different temperature demand than those ones. But little information about results from mitigation projects. Now, also new is pole-mounted bed houses in Europe. This is one in Tilburg, which had a first pipistrelle within 3 weeks, and the highest number until now is 8. So it's not that much, but it is. Maybe we are going somewhere, and they're also getting bigger and bigger. This one is recently restored, and I am sure you will see that one tomorrow. I don't know if there are beds in it yet. I hope so tomorrow. But it was built by a colleague of mine, because we could find no, I call it timber worker, who said, "Well, I can build it because it's a bit too big." And it was very busy also, but they found it. They said, "Well, that's a lot of work." And then Floor said, "Well, then I'm going to do it myself." So he built it in his garage, and we had it was very heavy. We had to lift it with 4 people to even get it in the van. So also new, not that new, but now you can buy. I was surprised that you can buy them commercially. You can buy them at shops in the UK. Prefab artificial heated bed houses for mitigation purposes, clearly. They are sometimes able to lure bats from the original roost very quickly. Not always, but it's. I think it's a part of a solution. Something I was very enthusiastic about, and also Johannes and Jaap and I. Was it Jaap? Thijs. Johannes, Thijs and I made a trip to Germany this spring, where was also a German meeting like this. And I was very interested in some mitigation projects that were managing to get new roofs or replacement roofs for sirotines, because sirotines are very difficult. They are very, they like the place where they are, so they don't move a lot. And they stick to the place where they are, and they often live in the cavity or in the crevices in the roof. So vertical mounted bed house in a wall is not that interesting for them often. Sometimes but because, and that's, I think it's because they like very high temperatures. Right? The roof is where the highest temperatures are. And Joachim Vrommert, he had, and there was I also found another example. Made a very good project of a renovation of a building where they made bed houses into the roof, so the beds could go into the bed houses and create also no nuisance problems anymore at other places, and they were very successful. And I was very happy to find also this example in Ireland for Leisler, for lesser noctule, for the bosvleermuis, and could that work as well? I think it's a great solution in providing something that looks like a roof in angle, etc. But I think what this bed house is missing is the mass of the house. When they live in the roof, then it's not cold at night because the heat from the house is also raising and getting up into the attic. And in that way, I think that is also cooling down very quickly. But I think these are the ideas that we need to get anywhere with bed houses. We have to try things out. Well, criteria of replacement, of success of replacement woods all over. I think, and I'm not going to tell you any details about bed houses, because you can find the criteria of successful bed houses on many websites, but it's obvious, but match the overall species ecology. If you're going to work for species A, check out what species A is needing. It's very simple. Match the overall criteria of successful bed houses in design, size, weatherproof, predator-proof, height, etc. But very important, match the microclimate of the original roost. And it means that you have to investigate the original roost, which is rarely done. Match the exposure to sun or other heat sources. Sometimes beds, sometimes when I have a nuisance, I have also I do work on helping people with bed problems. And when I get a call from a building for the elderly people, how you call it, I know where to go to the place where the central heating system is, because that's where they are. It's heated all over the year, so that's where the beds are. Sometimes they are in that building because of that heat source. Match the heat storage capacity and temperature ranges, and often this all means larger roosts than the standard bed roosts. And very important, match or even copy the entrance of the original roost. So in Germany there was a project where beds were going into the wall under the window seal. Is that what you call this? At the bottom of the window? And they made new bed houses into the wall, and they gave them, how you call it? Window seals. There was no window, there was just a wall, but there were window seals in the wall, and that was the bed entrance. So the beds recognized the same kind of roost that they were in before. So match the entrance of the original roost. Now then, you have a lot of success of a bed house replacement. It has nothing to do with the bed house, but in the way you apply it. Offer the temporary replacement roost as close as possible to the original roost entrance or other known roosts of the same colony nearby. If necessary, try a mobile replacement roost. I've not worked that for myself yet. We have advised it at many projects, but we never got there. But there are some German projects where they made a bed house and they moved it gradually to another building, first on the same building and then to another building, so get rid of them to get the work done. But it worked. Give beds enough time to discover the replacement roost. So for maternity roost, at least one maternity season with both roosts are available. I know that's very difficult with a lot of projects, because the projects do the bed research too late. But I think this is very important to get success. Once the replacement roost is used by some beds, or by a lot of beds, make sure the beds can't go back until the original roost. When you look at the Scottish report about research about bed houses bed boxes in houses, one of the main problems is that they build a beautiful bed house, but the bed still went back to the original roost. Work outside the maternity season and winter season unless the replacement roost is used and original roosts are free of beds. And when you do it before, when the maternity roost is already somewhere else, then you can work in the maternity season. But well, how to increase success of replacement roosts? Well, there's a lot of more research needed on roost ecology in general. There's a great need of monitoring of replacement roosts. And also a lot of experimenting with bed house designs. I think the great thing of the North American Bed House project was the tweaking by volunteers, by trying out different stuff. I know it's great fun to build a bed house. A lot of people that are here know it's great fun to build a bed house. Do it, put it in your yard, put it in somewhere where you can get, I call it, toestemming, permission to put a bed house on. And do some research with it. It's really great fun, and more exchange of information, which we are doing right now. And also a lot of education. And I have no information on it yet in this presentation, but there's a great Italian project. They have sold 25,000 bed houses to a supermarket, accompanied with a Disney-made education brochures for people. And they are doing what we are doing right now, putting bed houses up all over Italy, different kinds of bed houses, to try out what is needed. I think it's a great thing. Thank you for your attention.